Hello everyone and welcome to another Genshin Impact lore video. Today, I'm going to go over the stories of Viridescent, the Queen of Hunters. Her lore comes mostly from the artifact sets Viridescent Venerer and Deepwood Memories, as well as the weapons the Viridescent Hunt and Hunter's Path. With that said, it's time to get into the lore these artifacts and weapons give us. Over 500 years ago, the girl who would eventually become known as Viridescent was born. At a young age, however, she ended up becoming an orphan and grew up in the woods. In the woods, she was raised by the Lord of the Forest, named Viridescent, who guarded the forests under Greater Lord Rukkhadevata. Eventually, Viridescent taught the young girl the ways of survival and of the hunt. She was told that she must kill only for the sake of survival, and not for revenge or for sport. If she followed this rule, then one day after she left the mortal realm, she would arrive at an endless viridescent plain, where she would reunite with the departed. During her time as a hunter, she was quite in tune with nature, being able to tell what the grass and trees were saying in some way. She was also quite calm with animals and beasts, and even after shooting them with her bow, she would stay with them until their spirits returned to nature. She had very little fear as well, with her only true fear being talking to people. This wasn't because she didn't want to talk with them, but rather because she had long forgotten how to speak human language. She did once rejoin the humans though, where she accepted her place as the Viridescent Venerer. She also collected the laughter she heard that night in her vessel, which she would play back many times in the future whenever she felt lonely. She never spoke herself that night, and would also not leave a single trace behind when she left, due to her being so in tune with nature. Viridescent would eventually come to be known as the uncrowned Queen of Hunters, blending into nature and following all the laws that nature had bestowed upon the other animals and beasts of the world. There was no one who could ever bestow a crown upon her, as she was second to only nature itself. However, the serene and peaceful times of Viridescent's life would soon come to an end. In the nation of Conria, the Cataclysm had begun, and its effects would be felt throughout all of Teyvat. Monsters rose up from the abyss, ruin machines appeared across the 7 nations, and many more disasters occurred. For Viridescent, she encountered a certain boy in the woods. This young boy was blind, and had been wandering in search of his white-armored brother, who went to fight for justice in the Cataclysm. In his travels, the boy discovered a relic in the forest, a bow made of white branches called Hunter's Path. Unfortunately though, this boy would be discovered and fatally injured by monsters. This is when Viridescent found him, under a tree where she often napped. While the boy lay dying, he asked the huntress to take vengeance against the monsters that had fatally injured him, and she accepted this request. While she was prepared to give up the endless viridescent plain at the end of her life, she did not wish for her bow, the Viridescent Hunt, to become tainted. Thus, she left her original bow and took the Hunter's Path. After this, she went on a spree of revenge, killing the monsters who had killed the boy. After this, she ceased hunting birds and beasts, and committed herself to fighting back against the Cataclysm and the monsters that were rising across Teyvat. With time, she would lose what made her human, slowly descending to becoming more and more like the monsters she made her prey. The grass and trees also never spoke to her again, as Greater Lord Rukkhadevata had died in the Cataclysm. Viridescent also presumably died during the Cataclysm, which would explain why Viridescent slipped away from the rules of a hunter so easily. Her teacher was not there to stop her or help her. Additionally, she began to stop using her clever hunting methods that she had used before the Cataclysm, as she became covered in black blood. The scent she gave off was now what the monsters she hunted were used to, which made it all the easier for her to find and kill as many as she could find. After an unknown period of time, mainly due to the fact that Viridescent herself forgot time itself, the tainted huntress finally met her end. She wasn't able to move on to the endless hunting ground that she had dreamed of, nor could she likely even remember that she was once able to go there. Her death came from the sword simply named the Black Sword. This particular sword was wielded by the one known as the Bloodstained Knight, who traveled across Teyvat during the Cataclysm for the sake of justice. And yes, the blind boy from earlier in the video was the younger brother of the Bloodstained Knight. For a moment, the Bloodstained Knight believed that he had seen a maiden lost in the forest, but it turned out to be just another beast to slaughter. This beast was none other than Viridescent, who in the end was overtaken by the temptation of revenge, and died like many other beasts during the Cataclysm. This is where the story of Viridescent pretty much ends. Her legacy remains with the 2 artifact sets and bows that mention her lore, but there's not really much beyond that. These artifact sets and weapons are still around in Teyvat, of course, but Viridescent is not, being one among thousands who were wrongfully hurt by the Cataclysm. Viridescent's story is a tragic one, and unfortunately, Genshin Impact is full of these kinds of tragic stories. The Bloodstained Knight, La Senora as the Crimson Witch, and so many others were affected by just the Cataclysm alone, not even mentioning the Archon War and other disasters that have occurred in Teyvat. I would love to cover some of these topics in their own separate videos though, so let me know down below which artifact sets, weapons, in-game books, characters, and whatever else you want me to go over. I think presenting the artifact sets in this format is much better than my older artifact set videos as well, as it is much easier to draw information from other sources and connect everything together in a more efficient and presentable way. I really loved covering Viridescent's story like this though, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about her and her story down below in the comments as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are of course available in the description too if you want to check them out, and I hope you all have an amazing day. I'll see you in the next video.